given your thing, what I just wanted to add a little touch.
Mhm.
I'd love for the people who are watching us, relative to performance, happiness, life, small stuff is more important than big stuff.
Mhm.
And there's 3 or 4 quotes that I want to use, and then you and I can chat for a while. But
Okay.
my 2010 book, The Little Big Things, the epigraph for the book was from the American politician Henry Clay. Courtesies of a small and trivial character are the ones which strike deepest in the grateful and appreciating heart. And I think that's on my all-time top 5 list. And I've got about 3 others like that I just want to find a way, and you can push me on this, and then you'll know how I'm going to respond. I'd like to hammer on, let's effing stop always using the word disruption and dislocation and change tsunami. And I use it too upon rare occasion, but and it's the big theme of the book, and I guess we could pull that in quickly too.
Yep.
I say excellence is not an aspiration. Excellence is not a hill to climb. Excellence is the next 5 minutes.
Yeah. Excellence is the next email. Excellence is the...
Yeah. And again, given what your general focus is, I thought, you and I probably brushed on it, but I'd really like to shove it down somebody's throat, our viewers' throats, that small beats big anytime. Get off your disruption high horse and, check your last email.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's all. And I think we can do that in just a very few minutes.
What are examples of small things that people can do?
Well, you live in a city that's rather gray in the winter, he said with a statement.
Yes.
And one of the things I've always used for males as much as females, you're the boss, and on the way to work, stop at a flower stall and pick up some bright flowers. And when you go in, stick them in a vase on the receptionist's desk. I mean, that to me is the classic example of the sort of things that you can do.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
And the other one, which is one of the quotes that I use in the book and so on, is the former CEO of Campbell Soup, who wrote 30,000 handwritten thank you notes in the 10 years that he was CEO, which I believe adds up to 12 a day or something like that. And just saying thank you for little stuff. If you make $1 million sale, I do not have to thank you. Everybody in the world's going to come and give you a hug and a kiss on the cheek and tell you that you're God's gift to humanity. But it's the person who went just a teeny bit out of their way to help one of their brethren, even though they were busy. That's the one where you do the thank you. And the main part of which is they noticed that you noticed.
Yes. They notice that you care.
Yeah. Yeah. They notice it much more with a little touch than the big one. As I said, you do something big, you kick a penalty shot effectively. I'd go there.
Oh,
what shit?
What's that, Tom?
No, I said, what shit? The kids who missed the penalty shot, and they're, I once heard, and it's a long way from the importance of that contest, is American football, professional players were running off the field, and there's a player's exit, and all sorts of like middle-aged white guys were screaming at him and saying, you lost the effing game, and so on. And for some reason, there was some reporter covering it, and he said, what do you think about this? And the football player smiles. He said, they all really had a crappy week at the office, and they're taking it out. And he probably has a point.
Yeah. So let me challenge you, Tom. I mean, we need the small bits. We need the bits where managers care. But most of companies also need to be majorly disrupted, don't they? To turn into companies where people are valued, where they're given autonomy, where the role of the manager is to coach. These
Well,
kinds
all
of things.
that, I don't believe in giant steps.
Mm-hmm.
When Steve Jobs died, one of the fascinating things is he was rarely referred to as an innovator. They said, and I think you could say this about Thomas Edison as well, he was a tinkerer. You know, the fundamental idea was not revolutionary. It was, he really got it right, and with a million little touches, changed the shape of the world. There's some quote from Lorene Paljob, Steve's wife, and a guy by the name of Johnny Ive was the head designer. And the quote I love is, she said, Steve and Johnny would talk about corners, C-O-R-N-E-R-S, for hours on end.
Yeah.
And that's how we got that. The difference between, you know, an iPhone and a BlackBerry was all the ease of use and so on and so on and so on. It wasn't the fundamental idea. And so if you're into disruption, talk for hours and hours about corners.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's the, you know, I just believe that so firmly.
So absolutely, it's about the detail. It's about the small steps. It's about, yeah.
Not even small, tiny, infinitesimal. I mean, there was a guy I wrote about who was a division general manager at 3M, and he attended a seminar of mine after he'd retired 10 years later. And I remember him coming up to me and he said, here's one you'll love, Tom. He said, I had a retirement party, and one of the guys who had worked for me for a long time came up to me almost with tears in his eyes. And he, on his little, you know, the little divider walls in the standard office desks, he had pinned a thank you note that I sent him 10 years ago and pinned it on his wall and still had it hanging there. That's the intensity of this stuff. You know, that's what you remember. You don't remember like, good job, you just invented the wheel. It's just that little tiny touch that took us a step forward. I mean, the quotes that I love, the one by Henry Clay, courtesies of a small and trivial character are the ones which strike deepest in the grateful and appreciating heart. Vincent van Gogh, let's not forget that small emotions are the great captains of our lives. And then one from an Italian poet whose name, my pronunciation will probably be wrong, is Caesar Pavese, P-A-V-E-S-E. And he said, and this I love, we don't remember the days, we remember the moments. And I think that's true in relationships. I think it's true with your spouse, your kids, you know, and so on. And so, you know, the real reason I wanted to have an additional chat was just to single that out and pound the living tar out of it on, you know, get over the disruption crap, do 10 things that are nice little things, nice tiny things today, because the tiny stuff is the big stuff. And that's how we get people to invest extra hours, to think more imaginatively. And, you know, and part of it, I'm sure, is that when I got my PhD, I was sort of trained as a rat psychologist, B.F. Skinner and so on. And it's the little positive reinforcements. There's something I use in the book by a guy by the name of Marcus Buckingham.
Yeah.
And he says positive reinforcement is 30 times more powerful than negative reinforcement. Typically, people have said 6 or 7 or 8 good things for every correction thing. And his number, and he worked for years for Gallup. So he's a person who knows his numbers. Yeah. And he said, magic formula is 30. And I think if I can demonstrate to you that I really care about you, then we can talk about problems.
Right.
It's when I'm always rushed. And remember the thing we talked about, 50%
Yeah.
free, blah, 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 blah. So when I'm always rushed, I'm always busy. And I say, for Christ's sakes, why don't you do it that way? And, you know, I got to know you care about me before I'm going to listen to your criticism.
Yeah.
That still doesn't make it automatic.